Episode 9, Lesser Evils. Now that Quentin's little Alice problem has come to light, they lock him up and break bills. One way or another, they're gonna get Alice out of his body, even if that means they box her. Penny yoinks the button from Quentin and takes Katie back to Fillory in order to tell Julia what they found out. They end up breaking Julia out of the dungeon and bringing her back to Earth. One of the council members, Abigail, a talking sloth, suggests that in light of the Fillorians abandoning the army due to Julia's arsonistic ways, suggests that Elliot should do one-on-one combat, a duel between monarchs. No king has ever volunteered for that, and that's an assured way to win over the people. So Elliot signs himself up for a good old-fashioned Royal Rumble. Reynard's son is Senator John Gaines. Penny, Katie, and Julia go to convince him that magic is real and that he's being hunted by a trickster god, who also happens to be his dad. Julia, who has been acting unhinged ever since her shade got ripped away, attempts to kill him and contain his godly powers in a magical battery. And understandably, he starts freaking out and he accidentally lashes out with his untrained magic before they end up knocking him out and kidnapping him to break bills. Elliot is practicing for the duel and is finding out that just because he can do magic doesn't mean he's going to be good with a sword. And to make things worse, his opponent, King Idri, is a proficient swordsman. He's already fought in and won 14 duels. Fen ends up bringing him a magical sword that her grandfather made for a previous king. It comes with an accompanying spell that instantaneously makes the user a master swordsman. The only problem with the magical sword plan is the fact that magic is continuing to brown out, and if magic goes in the middle of the duel, Elliot is hosed. Margo gets told that she could petition the fairies in order to fix the wellspring. The only thing is, they require a very steep price. Elliot is starting to get really nervous about the upcoming duel, and Margo, in ultimate theater kid fashion, casts a spell that has everybody breaking out into Les Mis. It lasts up until the second the duel starts, at which point Elliot activates the magical sword, and everything seems to be going good until King Idri runs off into the woods. Unfortunately, the duel doesn't end until one of the monarchs is dead. While the duel is still happening, the ambassador to the fairies arrives at Whitespire, meaning that Margo is going to have to go back in order to negotiate with him. When she gets there, she finds out that the fairies are only willing to fix the wellspring in exchange for Elliot and Fen's kid. And she's like, over my dead body? Which was a bad thing to say because that offends the ambassador, which means that she's no longer going to be able to negotiate the bargain, meaning it's either the kid or no magic. Back at Break Bills, Katie is trying to convince John of his parentage, saying, hey, don't you think it's odd that whenever you sponsored a bill, it would always go through? Reynard shows up and tries to communicate with John, but the wards keep him out, until magic browns out again and the wards go down. And everybody has to run to the lab where there's an emergency generator. In the woods, without magic, Elliot is up a tree, literally. Him and Idri end up having a heart-to-heart about the struggles they face due to being rulers. Margo finds Fen and says, hey, are you willing to do anything in order to get magic back? And Fen says, yes, I am. And Margo goes, okay, but doesn't tell her what the cost will be. Julia ends up taking Quentin outside of the lab's wards in order to try to get Alice to attack Reynard. It doesn't work, and it just puts Quentin in danger until John shows up, where Reynard changes his plan of action and starts beckoning John, saying, come here if you want to find out about yourself. And then Reynard and John leave. Margo ends up agreeing to the fairies' deal, and the fairies come in and fix the wellsprings just in time for Elliot to avoid death. But during his and Idri's heart-to-heart, they've come to the conclusion that neither of them want to die, and instead of ending the duel that way, they decide they're gonna get married. Because apparently in Fillory, every ruler is allowed to have both a wife and a husband. So the war ends up stopping before it started, with an alliance between the two nations, where Loria will receive 50% of the wellspring. Due to Julia showing no remorse for her actions and putting others and herself in danger, she ends up getting put in the timeout corner in Brakebills. She's acting a little too beast-like without her shade. During this episode, Quentin and Alice have been arguing their points, with Quentin saying, "I don't want to live in a world without you," and Alice saying, "Hey, not every Niffin goes on a murdering spree. You can trust me." So before his body gives out, Quentin ends up releasing Alice free. In Fillory, the fairies start appearing around the castle, but only Margo can see them.